Hi, this is Dr. Alan Widener from MassageChairRelief.com, and good morning to you. This is my guest today is David Wood. He's the CEO of Human Touch, and David is we've chit-chatted in the past and talked about the industry and about, of course, Human Touch and their product line. But today we want to talk a little bit about, of course, the elephant in the room, which isn't really even an unrecognized elephant or an unacknowledged elephant. It is truly the biggest elephant, and that's the coronavirus and how it's affecting things. But I liked the reason I invited David was because we had we get regular updates from Human Touch about what's going on with production, what's going on with expected deliveries on stock that's for everyone is kind of slowly or quickly diminishing. But anyways, David, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time this morning. It seems like interviews I do nowadays are from people's homes.
Exactly right. I think we're going to be getting used to that for a while.
Yeah, you know what? It might actually set a precedent for work in the future. I'm sure there's going to be some realization for companies that, hey, we can.
Yeah, this actually works pretty well. Exactly.
Yeah, this doesn't look bad. We can maybe make this happen for some staff. Of course, there's some staff that I don't know if I'd trust them being at home all day, but most notably me, I guess. But
right.
But anyways, thanks for being here. Now maybe you could, one thing that you had mentioned is that you're expecting, and I'd heard this before from a couple of other suppliers, that they're expecting shipments in May. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and why May, and if that's still a schedule for the shipping. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So just kind of give you a general rundown and production in China and just kind of how this emanated out of there from a supply chain standpoint, something we've been monitoring for quite a while, really since late last year. And I know you've received our updates pretty regularly, but what we're seeing now, and we work with a few different factories in China, staffs are now back up to generally about 90% of production workers that we're seeing in the factories. We get regular reports on what is happening. And the people that are not yet back tend to be those that are still quarantined in Wuhan and other largely affected areas. But for the most part, the factories are getting pretty close to getting up and running. Part of the delay for several weeks is when you have about 70 to 80% of your workers back. All of our suppliers rely on sub-suppliers, people they look for plastic and PC boards and corrugated and everything else that you can imagine that's part of that production process. So for many of the main suppliers, they couldn't get parts from their sub-suppliers. So the problem kind of trickles all the way down that production line. And so as more and more workers have come back, I can tell you that just this week we've got several containers of product that just hit the water this weekend. With products like Novo XT and Supernovo getting back into production. We had some product in production that was already kind of work in process before the Lunar New Year and when all this really hit. So a lot of what's going out now is kind of just finishing off work in process that's now hitting the water. But now we're also seeing kind of the start of new production again. I think it'll ramp up somewhat slowly. I don't think there'll be full capacity for a while. But what I would tell you is I think from a supply and in-stock position, at least for Human Touch, we're probably in a better position there than I would have imagined 3 weeks ago, in part because the factories are coming back more fully. And part of what we're seeing here is that you're seeing is there's a little bit of a demand blip that's happened on this end. So a little bit tighter supply, a little bit demand restrictions. So things are beginning to net out a little bit as we speak. Yeah. So yes, that May time frame was very much geared on what we had heard earlier, and I still think generally that's when from a full portfolio standpoint we'll be pretty well back in stock. But I think between now and then, our ability to support the needs that folks like yourself have. We'll be in much better shape than we thought a couple weeks ago.
Well, that's encouraging news for sure. Are two questions that come out of what you just said? Are the sub suppliers or the part suppliers, are they all over China, or are they near your factory? Are they any in Wuhan province, for heaven's sakes?
Right.
What's their geographic?
Yeah, no, they're really all over, and it's not uncommon for a lot of these sub-suppliers that are generally focused on components or certain parts tend to be in some of the more distant areas of China, not in some of the larger areas of Suzhou or Shanghai or Guangzhou, places like that. So some of them are in areas that had been more heavily hit. And so many of those sub-suppliers had been shut down entirely for several weeks. And I'm sure some still are. But at least, over that time, most of our main suppliers are, can figure out alternatives or ways to bridge the gap. And so at this stage, it's put us in a better position.
Okay, so when you say the bulk of the product has hit the water, number one, have there been because now that things are back up to production, there's probably a lot of stuff that needs to get out quick. Has it been tough getting logistically? And secondarily to that, what's the time frame from the time it hits the water to the time it hits U.S. shores?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's something that we've been looking at as well. Now, the product that literally just hit the water for us this week, even up to about 48 hours ago, we were concerned it would be delayed about another week for all kinds of reasons. So you've got port challenges both on the Asia side, and then you've got port challenges on the West Coast California side that we're trying to manage right now. And in Asia, part of our concern was there were many vessels that were canceled simply because they couldn't be fully loaded. So that capacity was reduced over time over the last several weeks. As more and more factories get up and running, that capacity will be increased, but you're right, there's the potential for a little bit of a log jam that can occur on the Asia side that could cause some delays in getting out. Now, typically once product hits the water, it's about 2 weeks in transit on the ocean. And then once it hits the port in the West Coast, it's a matter of usually 5 to 7 days to get through all the normal, customs and receiving and drayage and so forth to get product. And as things ramp back up, we will have to see what sort of delays, if any, occur here on the California side of things as they arrive. I suspect as things get, kind of returning to higher flows, we will see some delays from time to time because same issues here on the ports in California where, there's been actually a shortage of containers back and forth. A lot of the trucking folks are trying to get ramped back up, and so when you see surges in demand that way, it's always going to cause some congestion. So, we're hopeful that what's on the water now will get to us in reasonably normal time. It's part of why we try to be at least somewhat conservative in the timeframes that we identify to you on when to expect product. We have to kind of bake in a little bit of potential delay along the line. So. But like I said, I think we're looking better than we did a couple weeks ago, all in. But yeah, I think a lot of the port story is yet to be told.
Well, probably about 3 weeks and 2 weeks on the water, and then another week to make sure you get through customs. Are you aware of work? Situations in the U.S. ports where they're cutting manpower or they're slowing things down to accommodate lesser shipments, and is that going to? Do you think that's going to be a problem that's not going to be tough to ramp up once production's in?
And that's a bit of a concern of ours, Dr. Weiner. I mean, and every day we're hearing more and more about just some of the pain for the workers at the port with just the lack of volume coming and going. And as you might imagine, that results ultimately in not having the sort of labor available, at least in the near term. So I do think there will be a little bit of pain. There certainly is some pain now happening. But as things begin to move a little bit more freely here shortly, hopefully the ramp up of that flow coinciding with the sufficient human resources to handle it will be okay. I haven't heard of anything yet that's truly devastating in terms of a time frame on the ports. I think they're trying to manage it as best they can. So hopefully if we can get goods flowing a little bit more quickly, it'll mitigate some of that problem.
So from the people that are on the boots that are on the ground in China near your factory or some of your factories, what are you hearing back as in terms of, like, for example, here in Salt Lake, I mean, geez, we got the coronavirus. We can't go out anywhere really and do anything. I mean, we can do minor things, but we're very limited. And then we have an earthquake, which even freaks people out even more yesterday. But and so the vibe here is not great. It's definitely a quiet, kind of this uncomfortable stillness. What's it like in China? Have you got any feedback from people on the ground there?
A little bit, and from what I understand, more and more businesses are beginning to get back to normal more quickly. I had some of our folks overseas, sending over photos and videos of a lot of places I'm familiar with in the Shanghai area, places that would generally be crowded with people that it was a ghost town.
Yeah.
And, while it's still slow, there is a gradual reopening of a lot of businesses, retail, restaurants, things of that nature. I mean, life is very, incrementally getting back to some semblance of normal. I don't believe it's anywhere near that in China yet, but it seems to be a little bit more on the upswing now, and hopefully it will continue that upswing to some sense of normalcy here in the next several weeks.
I think when we look back on this whole experience, when it's said and done, we will probably say, and I hope I'm right on this, we'll probably say, all in all, we weren't put out for too long, relatively speaking. I mean, when the recession hit in 2008, it seemed like that dragged on for like maybe a year and a half before we started to really feel positive about things. I get the feeling just from what we're seeing, because China's kind of like that's the beginning of the wave that's coming across the world, because that's where it all began. And I'm getting the vibe that this is since January. That's not. I mean, I'm not making anything light of this, but I feel like when we look back on it, we're going to realize that did not destroy us or disrupt us so much so that we're in trouble for years to come. I don't know. Do you have any comment on that or any vibe for that?
I think it's too early to really tell what the longer term impacts will be. I think the one thing that I would certainly say will happen is, as you well know, there's this whole migration of the way in which people engage and purchase product has been moving more and more online all the time. and this will do nothing more than accelerate that even further. So, my sense is there's going to be a fair bit of kind of stay at home that will be in place here in the U.S. for quite a while, either as businesses voluntarily look to have people work from home. In some cases, there's local requirements for folks to work at home. But I think those conditions will persist for a while. And while today a lot of demand is going to the toilet paper and the sanitizer and so forth, my sense here in the next give it week or two, after people are going absolutely stir crazy in their house, is they're going to be really anxious to do something. They're going to miss that trip to their massage therapist. They're going to miss that trip to the gym and the fitness equipment. So I really miss getting my regular massage. All the more reason to have a massage chair. In fact, we're hearing some reports that some massage chair sales in China were actually better for this very reason, that people were kind of forced to be at home. So, for folks like yourself, where I'm going stir crazy, I miss my massage, I can't go out, I need to have it here, and I don't really want to go to a store to buy it. I want to buy it online. I want to buy it from somebody reputable. I think those all point to very positive things for folks like yourself, and that may not happen today or this week or the next couple of weeks. But I think as we kind of get normalized and everybody has all the survival supplies that they need, those are the things that folks will think about. So I think it could be an interesting opportunity for this segment in the next several weeks. I mean, obviously we will have to see, but that's how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, I had commented to someone else that in the 2008 when the recession came, and I was just opening my first store, and I was quite scared about people not wanting to buy massage chairs now that the recession hit. And oddly enough, more people were, or not more people, but the sales didn't stop. It didn't plummet, because as we later found out that people were spending more on things like self-help and self-care, like massage and the gym and treadmills and massage chairs and whatnot. So I am optimistic about that. I think right now, though, I feel that there's kind of like this shock right now. It's almost like people are in shock that this is actually happening. As I told you before we talked, before we started recording, we were pretty busy up until Sunday. We had a great weekend, a busy weekend at all three of our stores, and then all of a sudden Monday night, everything just went radio silent, if you will, and it's been like that ever since. And I think it's kind of this reflex shock of just totally pulling back and not doing anything for fear of catching this thing. And but I agree with you. I think things are going to ease up. People are going to realize that maybe the worst has come, and maybe the worst is over, or it's on the way out. But I agree with you. I think people are going to be looking for some stuff like that.
And I think there were a few moments where a lot of this became real for people. And I would imagine, especially where you are, you kind of heard a little bit about it, and then in a single day, you hear that Tom Hanks has it. And then you've got your players on the Utah Jazz locally to you that have it, shuts down the NBA. And that's where people think, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
And I think that's where kind of a whole different level of thought for people kind of kicked in, is when the mainstream now is impacted by this. Maybe I should think about this differently.
Well, it's uncomfortable for me when I turn on the news and I find out, oh, there's more cases. It's almost like, please stop with the new cases. Please let it just end. But this thing will run its course, and and more people of note are going to get it. And it's just a tough thing for everybody. But hopefully, we'll see it. We'll see the tide turn quickly.
It really is. I mean, I can tell you here, we're having we're taking a number of steps to make sure that our people are safe and distance. Right now, we've got about 70% of our people working from home, and we think it'll get to pretty much everybody working from home outside of our logistics in the coming week. So we're trying to do our best to make sure that we're looking out for our employees and their families and providing what they need. It's a difficult time, and trying to balance the business need with the people need is always a little bit tricky during these times.
Yeah, it is. But I think I noticed one of your updates mentioned that you had staff working from home, and I think that seems to be the trend right now.
Yeah.
I know my son-in-law is home from his work, and my daughter says this coronavirus has been a good thing for our family. in a way, because they're spending time together, because he was always working so many hours and away from home, and the kids are out of school, and it's like, wow, this has been a great opportunity for them to grow tighter as a family. So silver linings are there.
Absolutely. That's what you got to hang your hat on.
And I'm sure I can't remember if we said this in the beginning of the recording or before we started recording, but this might change the way businesses operate on a wholesale level, in all industries. I mean, I have a massage chair store. Thank heavens. Good for me for opening up another one right before this hit, because it's pretty dead there. But right. For the most part, a lot of people can do this from home, and it might change business models wholesale. So I'm interested to see what becomes of that. From a businessman.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, it was good visiting with you, David. If you can think of anything else, feel free to comment now. But
no, I think these are tricky times. I know in my lifetime, I don't know that we've seen anything quite like this. I've certainly had some major disruptions in business over the years, but this one is particularly tricky because it's something that it's pervasive. It's been kind of happening slowly, and it's global. And there's dimensions to it that are just very, very difficult to predict. But I do believe, and I agree with you, that it's going to fundamentally change the way in which we do business. I think it will fundamentally change retail in a number of ways. But at the same time, I think it's also a spark to create some creativity and perhaps some new ways to do business that we hadn't before. So, certainly looking forward to, exploring more of those.
Yeah, I think so. I'm in agreement with you completely. Well, thanks for taking time today. I know that you're working from home too. Everybody is today, but thanks for taking time from your schedule to visit with me. Really appreciate it. This has been a good interview. Thanks a lot.
Hope your family is safe and healthy, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, please, just no more earthquakes. That's the coronavirus is enough. For heaven's sake.
Exactly.
Anyway, well, have a great day. Good visit, David. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.